Okay, so on this next assignment, we're going to be creating a portrait using only type. So I'm going to go and show you guys how to go about creating this portrait. Specs should be 12 inches by 12 inches, and the finish is going to be in Illustrator. So I would start out using Photoshop just to get the image down to at least 3 different shades of gray. So you want to do that in order for you to kind of separate where you need to put your type. So you are going to be filling your shapes in with type. So you could start off with a black background or a white background. If you start off with a black background, you're going to be using white type. If you start off with a white background, it's going to be black type. So I'm just going to use white background. All fonts need to be outlined. So when you're in Illustrator and you create your portrait and you're all finished, you're just going to go up to object and outline, or you can select all, right click, and it has an option that says outline text. Make sure you do that, because if I receive your file and I don't have your font, I will not be able to see the font that you used. I will not be able to see that you have all the different styles and weights that is needed, especially the paragraph formatting. So make sure that you are outlining your font. All right, so I have a couple examples in here, but what you want to do is start off by going into Photoshop, finding an image that you're going to use as your portrait. So you can use any image you want. It doesn't have to be your own. So I would start off by tracing out the background. I don't want the background in my image, so I'm just gonna trace out like we are always doing with the pen tool. And I'm gonna fast forward this so that you guys don't have to sit through to watch. Okay, so now that I have it selected, I am going to create my work path and create it a selection from it. So I could pull it just down, or I can click on it pressing down Command. All right, so then I am, just like the images that we cut out before, you don't want this layer to say background. So I'm going to double click on it, change the name to layer 0, and then I have to, this is way down there. So then I'm going to click on my mask here, cut out the background. So I'm going to probably use just this part here, but maybe the next thing I want to do is just to make sure that I have the dimensions correct. I am going to make sure it's 12 inches by 12 inches, just like the assignment says. And I'll leave it at 72 for now. Okay, so now I can just drag that layer over, and it looks like it's a little larger. So make sure when you resize, anytime you resize, you have to hold down Shift. Sometimes it depends on the selection of the your machine's preferences. You might have it set where Shift, it automatically resizes proportionately. So some of you don't have to worry about it, but some of you probably do. So make sure when you resize whatever it is that you're resizing, that you're proportionately resizing. All right, so now the first thing that I want to do is turn it into black and white. So I can go down to my color adjustment here, and I can just go to hue saturation and take out the saturation so it's black and white. All right, so what I want to do is make sure that I have lots of contrast between the lights and the darks. So I'm going to pull up another color adjustment, and I'm going to use curve. So I can just click on this hand here, or else I can at first click on the black dropper and select the darkest dark, and then the white dropper to select the lightest light. So I have a little contrast there. So then I can click on the hand here and raise certain parts up so I get a little bit more lightness if I want more contrast in certain areas, or down for dark. So this seems like it's okay. You do have to fill up the whole page with type. So maybe for some of this white space, maybe I want to do something like put in something creative. You could do anything really, so I'm just going to use a font and just enlarge it so that it fills up a lot of the page, and send it to the background. So I want to make sure you're designing. Yes, you can. I'm putting the black behind the area that's light so that you can see that a little bit more. And maybe I want to separate these two. Yeah, just try to be creative in whatever you do. trying to do something kind of quickly here so that I can move on. All right, so now, since I have all of this set, I'm going to take my top layer and then the bottom, press shift. I click on the top once, go down to the bottom, hold down shift and click on the bottom. I'm going to right click on that group. I'm going to convert it to a smart object. So now when I run this filter, you can see that it works on that whole group. So right now it's set for 6 levels or shades of gray here. So I probably want a little bit more detail. So maybe I go higher. Depends really. I'll just mess around with it because it really depends on your image and what you do with the contrast of that image. So I can go in here and change the levels, make it simpler. I want the detail because you don't want to lose the detail. So 7, I think 7 might be good. And then if you go in and you're like, oh, still doesn't look too good, you can always double click on your layer, go into your smart object. So you're double clicking on this icon right here to get into the smart object. So here I can still adjust my adjustment layer. So I'll grab the hand here and maybe I want to get in here and make the eye a little darker. Maybe that'll help in bringing the darks back in here. So if I hit save, it should update here. So you see how it updated and it got more darks in here. So it kind of looks a little bit better. And I like how the letter here is kind of making that line. Okay, so now this is pretty much ready to go. I can hit File and I can save this as, I want to save this as a, well, let me export, let me save a copy as, I want to make sure that this is compressed. So I'll save it as a JPEG and that should compress the file. I'm going to save it to my desktop. This you don't have to worry about the naming because it's not your final. So I'm just going to save it to the desktop. Make sure it's pretty high resolution. And then I am going to go into Illustrator. And in Illustrator, you're gonna create a new file, and you're gonna make sure it is 12 inches by 12 inches. I think that was the measurement. Just to make sure, 12 by 12. Okay, so now what we're going to do is go to place our picture into the document here. So double click and we could click once just to have this come in here like that. And now I want to look at my layers and I'll lock this layer, add a layer on top. Now what you're going to do, and I'm going to show you just one way of creating this here. So you're going to pick a font that has at least, so if I picked this font, it needs to have at least 3 different weights or styles here. So I would pick something that has more, because I have shades, different shades in here, and we are going to create these shades by using your kerning, your leading, your paragraph style here. So align left, center align right, turn off hyphenate, justify. So when you create these in these different areas that you're going to be filling in, you're going to have to create a sketch, and you're going to have to label each part. So what style you used, what paragraph format you used, and you could also put in, if you used closer leading, your kerning or your tracking. So in here, if I was to use, let's see if this has enough. Nope. Pick a common font. This has enough. So let's go with this one. All right, here's enough here. So I want to use bold to get the dark in here. Sometimes if I'm going to use my pen tool and I am going to create a shape first, maybe I want to go down, and sometimes what happens is, just get rid of the fill. What happens is that when you fill the area in, it will not wrap around. So you're going to have to compensate by going straight down here, and so what you're doing is, I'm going to fill the area in, but it doesn't have to continue back up, because it doesn't think that way. It doesn't fill and then fill back upwards. It goes from top to bottom. So you'll see as I do this, I will be creating here. I will be creating a fix this real quick. I will be creating this section in here using just type. So I want to delete that area, or that one layer. I'll just close the preview of it. And what I want to do is go into my area type tool. And you could get there just by pressing on the type tool and keeping it pressed so that this sub menu pops up. And then you're just going to select that type area type tool. So then right here, I just want to make sure that doesn't matter right now, but when you get in here and you click, you have to make sure you click on the path, and you see how it fills. I'm using Arial Bold. I want this to be my darkest dark. So what I'm going to do is, what I see a lot of people doing is filling the area up without thinking about how to fill it up. So I want it to be not 100% precise, but as precise as I can get. But I don't want to go below probably 4 points on your font. So the size of your font should not be brought down to a minimum. So you can be creative with your text. I would put spacing between each word, because then if you don't, it's going to mess up your formatting. So right now, my paragraph's set to align left, but I would kind of want to fill this shape in. So I'm going to use justify, and probably justify align center. And you can see that it's starting to fill this shape in. Then another thing that you want to do is, and I would jot this down as you're doing it, you might want to like do your sketch real quick of the you know, your layout, and start writing down as you're doing it what, you know, typeface you're using or what style you're using, and then what paragraph format you're using. So then select all, and I'm going to go over to character, and I'm going to change the tracking. So here's the kerning, here's the tracking. So then bring the tracking in. You can see that it's starting to get, and then I'm going to copy and paste more in here so it fills the whole thing. So then you see how between each line the leading is our problem here. Maybe I'm going to go down in size a little bit, make sure it's selected. Go down in size so that it fills it up top here a little bit. Maybe you want to put spacing so that you get in there pretty good. So I'm going to copy paste back in here again. So you have a lot of space between each line of text. So you're going to go over here to the leading, and you're going to bring that back. Make sure that you're selected here. I'm going to bring the leading back so that it squeezes that text in there. And you can see that it's starting to get darker. And this file, what happens is if you add too much text, it's going to get very, very slow. So you want to make sure that you're not adding as much text. Just make sure that you have enough to get dark. So if I zoom out and I look at it, like there might be little spots in here. I would mess around with it a little bit more, but the whole page should be filled with text, even the outside part. So if I have all of this, I don't want you to run shapes together. So you're going to have to create a shape for the white areas, and you're probably going to use a very, very light font. So this is the basic way that you should be creating your portrait. So you want to make sure that you're doing it kind of like this. So it has a start point, it comes down, and it ends. If I was to create a shape that goes back up, it would not work. So to go across here, and this part won't be filled. So in order to do that, I'm going to create and I think this line's here, so I want to end that line right about there, because it's, then I can move it over a little bit if I wanted to, but it's, as long as you don't see that there is a line there, it's going to be all tight when it's finished, so it's not going to look like there's a line there. So I ended that shape. Let me close that out, go back to my area type tool, select the line and click. So I already have that same setup set. So you see how it kind of gives you that little line there. You could go over and fix with the direct select tool, just grab the path, bring it together a little bit so it doesn't give you that line. Then you're going to always come back here and maybe mess around with it so that it takes up some of the space. But you can see how it's starting, I zoom out here, starting to feel like that shape here. So like it's starting to feel like that shape. And when you get into creating some of the features in here, it's going to start coming together, and you're going to come up with a portrait after that. So even the areas that are out here that are white, you're going to have to put fonts into the white area, but it's going to be very light. You got to make it light. So I'm going to show you a way to do that. Don't want to click on that path. I'm going to go over here. Use another layer when you're creating each of these different values. So if I was doing black, all the black would be on one layer. If I was doing white, it would be on another layer. Maybe a shade of gray would be on another layer. So you're not keeping all the layers under one. So here, I think that this is the path I'm working on now. So I can just maybe try to drag it out of there, put it in here. So I'm going to go in here, same thing, click on the path, fill it in. It's too dark now, so I'm going to go and use regular. I probably should have gotten a light, and in this area you're just going to spread it out. So go back to 0 here and spread it out. I might want to spread it out a lot, so it's going to be very light. Or I could even make the font larger. That might not work as well. Maybe it's just about like something like that. And if that had a light font, a light style here, it might be a lot better. You could also add italic or whatever it is that you want to do, but you could still see that it's giving you a different value there. Maybe use justified left so that that bottom part would align to the left. And I would jot that down because that's going to show that value, and I'm going to make sure that I have that throughout the whole image. All right, so I'm going to try to finish this by the end of the project. I can't spend all day working on this because it is the weekend, and I usually try to do these videos over the weekend to help you out. But hopefully this gives you enough information that will enable you to finish this project. Most important part of this is to follow the rubric, because I'm still seeing people that are getting things wrong just because they're not following the rubric. We do need sketches on this also. Like I said, it does not have to be a perfect sketch. I want to make sure that you're labeling each area. So what font you're using, font weight, leading, if you're using leading, the tracking, if you're using the tracking to create the type to make it smush in together a little bit between each letter, or between each letter of the whole body of type that you put in there. You could get creative with your type that you use. There's people that put lyrics in there, but this should be just using either black on white or white on black. So if you have a black background, it's white type, white background, black type. All right, so make sure you check in the rubric before you upload. Okay, so I was continuing on here. I have this path here, and I tried to fill it, but I can only fit 2 letters to this line. Maybe I could put 1 up here. So I'm hitting return. I'm trying to fill that whole space in. There's probably a way that like I can use my tracking, or maybe the kerning would help. Looks like tracking might help, but I still want to keep it so it's kind of light because it is the white area. You probably want to keep that down there, and now I want to try to fill this section in. but it seems like I have to go in here and probably start typing stuff over. So you do want to try to fill the space. You don't want to just leave it without trying anything. So that space is full. This one should be an easy one. You just click on it, and it automatically, when it replaces it with whatever you put in there before, whatever style. So if you keep the same style throughout on the whites, then that's what it should be. It should be the same style when you look at it. All right, so I have a little area up here. That looks pretty good. This should be, if it was black, I would definitely fill it in a lot more, but that kind of fills the space, so it works. This works. Probably should make it a bit more spread out like that one, and go back to preview. So just this area, it's not going to go over like that, so I probably have to cut it in the middle and make it go over each side. So I would do the darkest darks first and the lightest lights, so you could see how it's starting to come together. I mean, I could probably get even darker here if I maybe messed around with the leading. Let me unlock this one. Then select all, use the lighting here. You can see how much darker it got. I want to select all, copy. Maybe I just want to get this section. I don't want to have too much because then it's going to start getting very slow. That looks good. Let me get this. All right, so you get the idea of how you want to get these darks in there. Pretty dark because it's between the lights and the darks, especially when this is the lightest light. So once you keep on going through this, it's going to start coming together. It will start looking like what you see in the samples that I put in the assignment. Oh, one more thing, just to show you how you are to outline your fonts when you're done, just in case I'm not able to finish this up today. You're going to select your whole piece here. I would probably save a version of it so that it is still the font, and then save another version where it's outlined. So you're going to make sure everything's unclicked here, nothing's locked, and you would select all, and then you go over to type, and you go to create outlines here. So now it changes it to an outline. If I zoom in, you can see that these are unable to be edited anymore. So they are shapes now. And if you wanted to, you could do this a whole different way. I'm not saying that this is the only way to do this. So if you find out a better way, then you could go ahead and try a different way.